welcome to the Aquilina House Center, the Leon County School Board. Today is Tuesday, March 27, 2018. We're glad you're here with us. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I believe our first item is Jonathan Etheridge from Springwood Elementary School is going to do our Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jonathan, and I believe our thought for the day is also from Springwood Elementary in the house tonight, Amira Hayes. Okay, just a minute.
My thought for today is our Springwood College Creed. It starts off like this. I am a student at Springwood Elementary School. I am an intelligent and responsible student. My destiny is in my hands. I will overcome all obstacles which stand in my way. The decisions I make today will affect the rest of my life. I will have respect for myself and others. I will also set a good example for my peers. Education is my ticket to success. If I say it can be done, I will achieve my goals. I am a Springwood College prep student, and giving up is not an option.
Did you memorize that entire thing? That was good. That was very good.
Looks like she was going to say.
Did you have something else to say?
I like that College Creed because it inspires me, and it should inspire other students in my school to do better and just try their hardest to do whatever they can.
I think it's inspired everybody in this room tonight, for sure, so
Certainly.
thank you. If we could have the proud parents of both of these Springwood students and the administrators from Springwood stand up and be recognized, we would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you also very much. Ms. Richardson, did you have something? Did I see a hand? No? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. We know that there's a full house with us tonight. We have lots of really important things to talk about. Young students, if you would like to stay, we would welcome that. But if you would like to leave and you have homework to do and school to get ready for, you feel free to exit at any time, okay? All right. All right, Madam Vice Chair, changes and additions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The superintendent recommends approval of changes in addition to the March 27, 2018 school board meeting agenda as presented. Number 1, add item 22.01, continuing concerns from board members. Lively Financial, Alva Strickland, School Board Chair. 2, add item 23.01, new issues from board members. Women History Month, Joy Bourne, School Board Member. 3, add item 5.06, reports to be heard. Holocaust Education Resource Center update, school outreach initiatives, and teacher training. Barbara Goldstein, Hurst, HERC Executive Director. 4, item 6.03, approval of personnel action. March 27, 2018, replace documentation. 5, pull 18.07. Superintendent recommends approval of the Edmentum Credit Retrieval Renewal 2018-2019 pull. 6, item 17.02, donation of building number 4 at Heritage Trail Community School to Dale Mabry Army Airfield Museum, Inc. Pull. 7, item 17.06, interview committee recommendation and authorize the negotiation with Noble Consulting Group, Inc. for RFQ 429-2018 Civil Engineer Consulting Services for Transportation Services Site Improvement Project Pool. 8, item 17.07, Engineering Selection Committee recommendation, George and Association Consultant Engineers, Inc. for RFQ 430-2018 Civil Engineering Consulting Services for Childs High School Site. improvements and site expansion project, pull. 9, item 18.10, the superintendent recommends approval of the semi-annual construction report, pull. 10, item 6.03, approval of personnel action, March 27, 2018, replace documentation. 11, item 18.01, resolution 18.01, reaffirming the School Board of Leon County's commitment to providing a safe learning environment for students, teachers, and staff. Per board request, this item was moved from 18.14 to 18.01. Resolution documentation was attached. As a result of this move, all consideration items were moved down on the agenda. 12, item 18.07, the superintendent recommends a public hearing prior on the adoption of new instructional materials science. This item was moved from consideration to information items and is now item 19.02.
I think there's a little more on the back.
Yes. It's okay.
Not much.
Almost there. Public hearing prior on the adoption of the new instructional materials science. Reason, this item does not require action at this time. Okay, we can wait.
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval?
Second.
Moved by Wood, second by Bowen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Just for clarification, I know I talked to you all about this yesterday. We did pull several construction items, and I want to kind of clarify why that happened. So we've been examining the possibility of building a bus depot, a fueling station and bus barn up in the northern part of the county. We've just been looking at it. And after I mentioned something to our facilities people about it, they got gung-ho and went running up there and did trying to look at doing some consulting work to see what it potentially would cost the district. I think that was confusing. It may have caused some confusion that we had dollars earmarked up at Round Childs High School where we're looking to build this facility. So we had that item pulled along with we're trying to do some renovations at 1156 over on Capitol Circle Northwest to move all of those buses over to that facility. We're just in the exploratory process, and I didn't want there to be any confusion about our priorities or where we're going with Rickards and with Fairview. So we had those items pulled because those projects wouldn't happen until well in the future. So for clarification, that's why they were placed there, so we could explore options looking at potential development of buses, because right now we bring all of our buses from the southern part of the county up into the Clarn Lakes area, and I think we have an opportunity to save money by building a bus barn up in the north part of the community, but right now is not the time. So we'll circle back in a couple of years.
Thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate that. 3.01 Superintendent Spotlight, none to date.
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. 4.01 recognitions, none to date. 5.0.
Ma'am.
Okay, 5.01 District Advisory Council, Dewana Moore.
Good evening
Evening.
Good evening.
to our superintendent and our board chair and our vice chair and all members of the board. Again, good evening. We had a district advisory council meeting on Thursday, March 8th, 2018. It opened with introductions. Dr. Michelle Gale facilitated that. We talked about safety and security updates. Our superintendent and Chief Hunkiar gave us some updates on what's going on around the district, which was very, very important. You know, we needed to hear that from the district advisory council needed to hear. We then talked about school outreach programs, and one of the programs that we talked about, Ms. Barbara Goldstein and Ms. Doreen Dumond from the Holocaust Education Resource Council came and told us that there's a pilot program taking place at Chairs Elementary School, which is it's a book entitled The Crayon Box, and it talks about Holocaust education and how, important it is for our students, even at an elementary level, to hear about the Holocaust and learn about it, and it is a state mandate as well. We then discussed and voted on policy 6320, purchasing and contracting for goods and services. Ms. Kale presented that policy. We also voted and discussed policy 6330, selection of professional service providers for construction projects. Mr. Albritton presented that one. Mr. Shane Seifert gave us a Title II update. And we ended with nominations. A committee was formed for the 2018 nominations, 2018-2019 nominations for our District Advisory Council. And our next meeting is April 5th. We look forward to having a room just as full as this at our next meeting. And that is the report of the District Advisory Council.
Thank you, Ms. Moore, for
you.
all you do and
Thank
the whole
you.
entire council. We appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job.
5.02, Student District Advisory Council, Landon Coles.
And Madam Chair, as Landon's coming, I see our Springwood kids are leaving. They're getting, we're out of here. Okay, y'all go home, do your homework, have a good evening. If there's anybody else that wants to leave, exit at this time as Mr. Coles is making his way up, feel free. It's good to see so many people in red here tonight, Mr. Mazur. Great job.
Good job. Red's a good color.
And so now there are some seats available up front, ladies, if you would like to come take some seats up front.
Mr. Coles, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Let me first start off by saying that it has been most definitely a busy last month and a half between protests and welcoming the students of Stoneman Douglas. We spoke about that. So that is what initiated our conversation at the Student District Advisory Council. For those of you that are unaware, the Student District Advisory Council is basically a forum of students from across the county who gather to discuss issues and champion projects within the community. We started by, for one, discussing how proud we were to see so many students from across Leon County banding together in times of need and taking a stand, as Superintendent Hannah said, whether regardless of the politics of the situation. It was amazing to see so many students raising their voices and voicing their First Amendment rights. So that was what we discussed at first. Then we moved forward in terms of, like I said at the most previous meeting, we are discussing the 2018-2019 school year, looking forward to the future. My recommendation for the Student District Advisory Council will be to ensure that we have now 2 monthly meetings, one in-school meeting and one outside meeting. The confines of 1 hour at lunch is not enough in order to ensure that we are being productive as the Student District Advisory Council. There are goals that have been set for us, and we have fallen short because we do not have the time in order to see to it that we're able to get through what we need to get through. It's important that we ratify our Constitution and our bylaws. It's important that we continue to move forward and that we're breaking down those communication barriers. And with that, that's going to be my recommendation for the next school year. We also discussed nominating the next student school board representative as well as the next Student District Advisory Council chairman. I most definitely want to see to it that every student involved with the SDAC is involved in the interview process. Unlike in previous years, the process is delayed until the summertime, well after those seniors who were on the board have graduated and they are not allowed or not able to be involved in that interview process. And I want to see to it that we're able to pass along what we know to those who will succeed us. So that is also what we discussed. We also discussed Springtime Tallahassee. Superintendent Hannah offered us something that we could not refuse, standing with him and marching with him in the parade, all student government representatives from across Leon County. So we're most definitely going to work to get that together. We have another meeting that I'm shooting for this Friday. It's tentative. I most definitely want to discuss that with the representatives. I know that as we begin to hit grad bash season and prom season that we run into scheduling conflicts, and of course, you know, we're going to do our best to work around that as much as we possibly can. And with that being said, we discussed a few other things, just caught up socially, and it was great to see my fellow representatives on the board. And with that was our meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coles.
If I may ask,
Yes.
I know Landon touched on it a little bit, but we had an amazingly productive conversation about school safety. And it's just so amazing to be around other students who are so aware of what's going on and have so many great ideas. One of our SDAC members, Cameron Fink,
Student Body President, Leon High School.
Yes. He proposed that we write a resolution about what schools can do here in Leon County for free to promote school safety and to promote, a safe learning environment, which is something we're definitely looking to do in the near future. And then another suggestion that I got from a Leon student is having a longest table type event, which was held earlier this year by a Leon student, and is also held by our mayor, Andrew Gillum. So just something that to be on the lookout for. SCAC is doing great things. So Landon touched on most, but I just wanted to add that because it was something that I really took from that meeting.
And just to elaborate a little bit further, to bounce off what Karina said, we also, I see SDAC as most definitely an excellent mouthpiece to foster the communication channels. A lot of students have a lot of things to say with so many different things going on within our Florida community. Students are most definitely taking a stand, and I see SDAC as in the perfect position in order to foster those communications. Me and Cameron have sat down, and he is looking to bring in a few people who have endured some tragic events within the school community, and we want to sit down and begin this conversation and begin to look forward, like I said, to the future, and begin to find ways to assist you all in the process. It's important that we have young people getting involved with the process. You all are, you don't know, it all. We are the students actually going to the school every single day, and I think it's important that we are the ones that also have a voice as well. And also to what Karina touched on as well, just the activist part. I've most definitely been pushing so many clubs within Leon High School itself to get involved with the peanut butter and jelly drive. So just most definitely, like I said, beginning to foster those relations and breaking down those barriers. But with that, that is all I have to say.
Could you, since you mentioned it, would you share with the public what the peanut butter and jelly drive is? So those of us that don't know are aware.
So pretty much what the peanut butter and jelly drive is something that oftentimes many high schools and middle schools here within Leon County work in conjunction with Second Harvest. And a lot of times what the schools are doing, we are putting together, at Leon anyways, we have each teacher in each classroom, they have their own box, and they are encouraged to bring as many cans for peanut butter and jelly for those as possible, for those who are less fortunate within the community. It's something that we've done for the last few years. And this year, what I'm trying to do is I am president of a few organizations at Leon, and I'm trying to foster a friendly competition in order to see that we get some high turnout and that Leon is producing and using our fortunate abilities to the benefit of those who do not have. So that's just a brief synopsis.
We love it. And there's a superintendent with the Second Harvest CEO or executive director up on the screen
So
making
you can
peanut butter and jelly.
you can scratch superintendent's comments. Thank you, Landon. I appreciate it. We're good. And speaking of our future, looking at you and Karina and the other, we're in good hands. We are. I mean, all I can say is wow.
Wow.
I am so impressed.
I think we would all agree that your voice has been heard around the country in a mighty way this year. We're impressed with our young people.
Oh, yes, ma'am, and we're just getting started. Just scratching the surface.
I hear you. Thank you, Landon.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Also, we have one of our SCAC members, Ahmad, here sitting in the front. So shout out to Ahmad.
Woo, thank you. All right, 5.03 Title I Advisory Council. Marie Claire Lehman is with us. She gave a great presentation yesterday. The Title I Council is doing some amazing work, not only identifying issues, but they're actually bringing recommendations on how we can bridge some of that achievement gap with the dollars that are out there. And I think we were all just blown away yesterday by the work that your group is doing. So even though we hear from you every week, yesterday was really
every month,
amazing.
not every week.
Every month.
Every other week, every month.
Every month.
Anyway, pretty often.
Does it feel that many times? Yeah, it feels like I'm here all the time.
We're grateful.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm done. No, I did first of all, we had a meeting on March 5th at Bond Elementary, and that where we finalized those recommendations that you heard yesterday. Just our regular monthly meeting, and we have another monthly meeting coming up in April and then May. We really enjoyed presenting to you yesterday. We enjoyed doing the work, we enjoyed preparing the presentation, and it was so nice to be so well received and to feel like this conversation is just, really, that you're really welcoming this conversation. And of course you would. We had no doubt that you would. But I had you know, the presentation we gave you yesterday is too long for this segment of the school board, and I didn't have a chance today to work on something, you know, distilled for the school board. So with your permission, I'd like to bring some visuals next month in a much more kind of brief way to give more people a chance to see what the Title I Advisory Council has recommended to the school district and the school board. But just for sort of a preview of that, we showed the school board some graphs that correlate the economic advantage and low minority rate of those schools that are achieving A's and B's, and obviously on the opposite end of the scale, how much obviously Title I schools are by definition economically disadvantaged, but as well how it correlates with minority rate, higher minority rate. And we really focused on early learning in our recommendations, trying to having the district trying to invest more in early learning through partnerships with, more partnership with the Early Learning Coalition and Head Start, and also increasing access to school readiness programs. These were large recommendations that we'd love to be more specific about with you in the future. And we really want to start looking at how Title I schools in other districts that are managing with the very similar demographics to achieve A's and B's. So that's sort of what one of our, hopefully, what we'll call them as a task force from now on. One of our task force will look into that so that we can glean some best practices from them. And we really want to help the school district be better integrated in the community of services that Tallahassee has to offer, so that we're really benefiting from all of the services that are out there already in Tallahassee to help our students in Title I schools. So that's just a sort of little brief overview of our recommendations without going in depth, because I didn't want to burden your long meeting tonight with the visuals that we had yesterday. So thank you.
Ms.
Thank
Lewis
you.
Butler.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Ms. Marie Claire Lemon, for yesterday. You and your committee did an awesome job, and and bringing the data together so we could see it. You presented an outstanding report, and in your report, there were a lot of initiatives that our district need to use. As I went through the packet that you passed out yesterday, I was looking at, as you already stated, early learning, the pre-K, pre-3K, and pre-K 4 years old. Since we started at the 5, so we're missing the pre-K 3, and we're missing the pre-K 4. And it's starting late, pre-K 5, and that was brought out yesterday, and that was very good. Also, your partnership between schools, that was another good point. Schools are so close together, they should be partnering together. That was another good point. Partnership across the county, that was very good. We really need to partner across the county with our Title I schools. All our Title I schools at the bottom, and as you stated, we need to look at other districts to see how their Title I schools are making A's and B's, and that's very good. So that's good information by you taking the data and the research that you've gone through and pulling it and bringing it to us. A very good report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Could I add one more thing?
Sure.
I wanted to thank you as well and tell you that just like an hour ago, the County Commission was meeting and talking about possibly putting a Children's Services Council on the ballot. And I spoke and told them that you had spoken to us and really pointed out the data, particularly as it relates to economics and school grades and housing prices and all the things in Tallahassee that we were struggling with, really, with our economic segregation that we have. And I said that this Children's Services Council could really work on 2 of your recommendations. One, looking at birth to 5, because we aren't funded for birth to 5, but Children's Services Council could be. And the other recommendation about getting other players involved, focusing on children, that's what a council does, and they have the superintendent's on it, a school board member, the governor appoints people, the county commission appoints people, so it could be just the perfect vehicle for if the citizens vote for it, that we could have a real laser focus on children and children's issues that might be able to help the school system get these children ready for school so that they're not behind before they get started.
Right.
And so I think the whole town can really benefit from your recommendations and us working together. I think we're really on a good path right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we really wanted to convey yesterday is that this is not just a school, it's certainly not a school-created problem, but it's also not a school solvable problem, and that the data wouldn't surprise people in the room. It's not surprising, but we need to address it, and the way that the school district will address it best is by really standing with other organizations like you mentioned, and not bearing the burden on its own, and everyone recognizing that this is a countywide issue. So it's really encouraging that they're paying attention to that, especially for the early years, as you said.
They just voted unanimously to put it on the ballot, to have the public hearing for it. So that's exciting.
Great, and please extend my offer to them for more information from the Title I Advisory Council at any of their meetings, if that can help support the players or whatever. Yeah, and we really support you in continuing to be involved with those kind of governmental, I guess, connections for all of those recommendations. Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
prior to Ms. Marie leaving, I just want to say that her report from yesterday in reading the handout fits into what we've been talking about for a while through this Citizens Committee.
Did you see that I mentioned it at the end?
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So at the end, because it was only one line in the report, so I don't blame you for missing it. But verbally, I elaborated a bit because we love your initiative.
Great.
We want to be helpful in supporting your initiative and in being at the table if you would have us.
And we do.
Okay.
And we will push up close to that table and continue to make certain that this is not a neighborhood where we look out for just ourselves. We look out for everyone. And so I just want to applaud you for continuing to take that kind of approach to what we do, because if we can get one school and one community to see what it is that we can do once we educate our citizens in it, then I think the chances of our society being better and our communities will continue to thrive. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I had to poke that in there right then, just in case, in our rush, we forget. But we are each other's neighbors. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie Claire. 5.04, Florida Virtual School Data Breach Update.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, when I was principal at Leon years ago, I used to say that Leon High School was much bigger than any one person or any one position, starting with the principal. And that was with 2,000 kids and 140 employees. Well, imagine now with 34,000 students and nearly 5,000 employees. It echoes even more that this school system is much bigger than any one person or any one position, starting with me. And I could not do it without a lot of other good people helping. And you know all about me, and Scott, I've told you this time and time again, I'm all about eliminating wasteful resources and pushing dollars down to the classroom and trying to cut the bureaucracy at the top. But there are some people that we need in order to make our school system function efficiently day in and day out, and to provide what we need to provide for our administrators who can then help our teachers. Well, Jillian, I just want, before she gets started, want to say thank you for all of your hard work above and beyond, well after hours, with 2 kids and a family, at midnight on the weekends, because when I got the call about this data breach, I wanted to go to the bathroom and throw up. I got that upset. I mean, I was just, oh my God, what does this mean? What has been compromised? And had it not been for her efforts and the efforts of some other people she's going to recognize, I just can't do without you. And I would say the same about the other assistant superintendents. As hard as I try not to be top heavy, there are some people that we need that I count on day in and day out. And Jillian, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I owe your family, your husband, an apology. I know Bill Nimmons was trying to go on a vacation. I owe his family and his wife an apology. But thank you for seeing us through this mini crisis.
Well, thank you. That was surprising.
And now I'm rattled. Good evening, school board, Madam Chair, school board members, Superintendent Hannah. I have the distinct pleasure of updating you regarding our FLVS data breach. And the way I've provided the update tonight is chronological order. I think that kind of makes the most sense in terms of understanding kind of how we got to where we are today. In mid-February, we were notified by of a potential breach by a third-party entity, somebody not associated with either organization. And at first, we thought it was actually a hoax. And we subsequently investigated that the notification and identified that true story. We actually had a data breach. And once we identified that, we immediately launched an investigation to determine the nature of the breach. And so by nature of the breach, I really mean who was affected and what data was affected. We launched it both internally with our own TIS department, and I'll get to them as the superintendent mentioned in a minute, but also with multiple state and federal law enforcement agencies. It quickly became apparent to us that while we have the very best working in Leon County schools, that somehow this was bigger than us. And so we determined at that time through our internal investigation and through conversations with the other law enforcement agencies that the nature of the breach and the location of the breach. And so we really identified that a third-party vendor, at this time Florida Virtual School, was where the breach happened. And so when I say breach, I think the easiest way to think of it is in terms of kind of like a line and somebody crossed the line. And so that line was crossed at Florida Virtual School. What we determined was that there were a couple of different types of breaches that occurred. One was, and I had to think of it in terms of buckets to make sense of it for me, because I am not a TIS person. And so one group of people were about 1,700 teachers who had their Social Security numbers compromised. Those Social Security numbers were compromised because prior to 2014, student schedules were tied to teachers using Social Security numbers in our management information system. So on student schedules, nobody really knew that, but when we reported that information to the state, we reported it tied to teacher-student Social Security numbers, because there could be 3 Smiths in the district or 5 Johnsons in the district, and so the unique identifier before 2014 was a Social Security number. Subsequent to that, we used something called a PID number, and so we've scrubbed out the Social Security numbers, which is why there are kind of 2 different sets of, or buckets of people. This group who had these Social Security numbers used in 2013, and it was really not every teacher in 2013, it was those teachers who had something, a class identified as a homeroom. And then we had a group of teachers and students who were identified as being compromised on personal information. And so personal information includes things like email addresses, demographic information, immunization information. And so that information that was housed in the system was also compromised. At the same time, we reached out to risk management, of course, and our insurer to identify what steps we in Leon County Schools had to take to move forward. So we worked with Florida Virtual School initially, who declined to acknowledge that what we thought had happened, the compromise on their side, happened in that manner. We also retained privacy counsel, Mullen Coughlin, and on the advice of that counsel, retained a forensics expert. Because again, the idea is that we think we know what happened, and the vendor's saying, no, that's not what happened, and so, who's right? So we had to go out and find an expert to go and tell us, is what we're seeing accurate or not? We also, when we took out that feedback, we went back and reinvestigated. And what we found through all of those different pieces of investigation is that our initial findings were confirmed, that the breach occurred through Florida Virtual School, and these forensic experts were able to identify that. While all of that was going on, Florida Virtual School did return to us and say, yeah, it does appear that there seems to be some sort of breach on our side. At that moment, once we had kind of not who did what, we shifted to what is going to be done for our Leon County Schools folks. And we recognized immediately, the superintendent immediately identified the Social Security numbers were a much different type of security breach than maybe some of that personal identification information. And so we had to identify what is going to be done, who is going to do it, and when is it going to be implemented. And so we coordinated the efforts with our attorney, with some others, and we recognized also, I've learned so much about this, that according to Florida statute, where the breach occurs, that entity has up to 45 days to notify the affected individuals. And that 45-day threshold was not acceptable to the superintendent. So that was kind of a mitigating factor as well. So on one hand, we could have just said, this is a Florida Virtual Schools thing, we're done with it, and we'll let them take care of it from here on out. But what I feel confident in saying is that 45-day window, we're still within that 45-day window. And so we could not foresee it being okay to have this happen and wait and not move forward. So FLVS did offer to notify our Leon County Schools employees, staff, and students when their investigation was complete. And as I mentioned, the superintendent felt that was too long. So we made the following decisions. For the bucket of people whose social security numbers were compromised, we, LCS, was going to handle the notification and the production of protection services for those individuals because we could do that quicker and more efficiently than waiting for Florida Virtual School at that point. The superintendent had conveyed to both our attorneys, to our insurer, to everyone the sense of urgency, and so we were working with, we have a call center set up, we had to go out and get these services and identify some credit monitoring set up. And then FLVS said that they would go ahead and provide personal identity protection for all of the other students and teachers and staff affected, and they have reported to us over 368,000 students potentially affected throughout Florida. So it's much bigger than Leon County Schools, and I can't really speak to those efforts, but I can say that we really took a moment to unpack all of the different levels of this because we really felt that each level had a different remedy, and we wanted to move forward with that, and on the advice of counsel, we moved forward doing that. Florida Virtual School opted to notify via their website and media release only. That is acceptable under Florida statute. Again, the superintendent felt very strongly and conveyed emphatically that that was not acceptable in Leon County. And so what we were going to be doing differently. So since we also were concerned that our local residents would not necessarily see the Florida Virtual School notification because they're out of Orange County, and so if they do a press release in Orlando, it's not necessarily going to be picked up locally. So the superintendent, we developed a postcard to notify our students and staff who were being taken care of by the Florida Virtual Schools side of the breach. And I skipped over that the beginning, maybe spring break, we sent home a letter to the Social Security numbers bucket of people to get them enrolled in our protection system. So where we are today is we've shifted our focus. We're resolving kind of these individual issues associated with problems with the call centers, right? Because Experian is running one call center, All Clear is running another. So we have some customer service issues where we can improve on. We have some misinformation that we can improve on. We've been working with our attorney. We've been working with the Florida Virtual School attorney. We've been working with both entities to correct that. But we've also shifted our focus internally. And so the superintendent has directed TIS and academic services to review all of our data exchange protocols, to strengthen all of our data exchange protocols, and to ensure that as we move forward, we minimize our risk as much as possible. And so we are in the process of doing that. And as the superintendent mentioned, if I may take a moment of personal privilege, and I acknowledge that we are continuing to work through this issue, there are just some unsung heroes, and I know it's a sensitive topic, but I really wanted to take a moment to publicly acknowledge Bill Nimmons, Dale Joyner, Don Russell, Chris Evelo, and Charles Daffin. When I tell you we were emailing at 11 o'clock on Saturday night, we were emailing at 6 a.m. on Sunday, people were going to church and coming back, we were working 8 hours on the weekends, and we, and I appreciate the feedback, but that's an expectation of somebody in my position, right? Like, we work 24/7, and I acknowledge that. But when we're talking about people who are building websites in TIS and who are project managing in TIS, working at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, answer emails, hundreds of emails going back and forth trying to work through this, I just want to take a moment of privilege and recognize their hard work. We can't give everybody raises, but I would just like to say to them, thank you. You know who you are, you're back there. I asked, did you want to come up? No. But they are the unsung heroes. They worked tirelessly from planes. I mean, I felt like it was planes, trains, automobiles, and kitchen tables. I mean, we were really working behind the scenes and all of this. So I just want to
Ask them to stand up at least. Stand up.
Bill, I only see Bill and Don.
Stand up.
Ah, there they are.
and this will probably embarrass Dale. I mean, but Dale had to have major surgery like halfway through this, and he's back a day after the surgery. I mean, so again, I just want to thank you for your kind words, but really the heavy lift was by others, and I am so appreciative of them.
Thank you, Jillian, and I can speak on the flip side of that. So I was one of those teachers, and I can tell everyone here and in the public that I think from the minute the superintendent called me as board chair and said, I got something to tell you. I'm like, well, that's not new. You have something to tell me all the time. And he was like, well, no, you're in this. I was like, oh gosh, what is this? And from the minute he told me, I could tell he was so concerned about it. I think maybe it was 5 days later I got the letter. So I knew as board chair hardly any sooner than anyone else on that list. Y'all were moving that fast that I got the letter. I logged into the whatever it was I was supposed to do, lickety split. I've had no issues. And then a week later, I got my 6 postcards from my 6 children. And I was like, oh, but it's all been, you have done the best you could in this situation. This was not a Leon County Schools issue. Right. This was a Florida Virtual School issue. But you guys went above and beyond to make our Leon County Schools teachers and our Leon County Schools students aware of what happened. And some of them may have been swept into there that weren't part of this, and I get that, but I think we erred on the side of caution to let everybody know this happened and not cover it up. And that, man, the message went out immediately. So I can attest to the rapidness that this was processed, and I thank all the staff for that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
May I please just say this? Thank you, Jillian, for your hard work and your diligence, and the staff, and Mrs. Superintendent, for what you've done to make us be where we are right now in this. Because when we were first notified of this, I thought, oh my goodness, what have we done? That's the truth. But I've just heard, and I need to say this to those folk that are listening who say we did something. We did what we were supposed to do. This was not a Leon County school problem issue. We didn't do it. I'm saying that to those folk who meet me in back corners at various places, churches, Publix, that's the place. Publix. And so to hear what you've done, my first thought was, what's the message and where are we now? So I heard the message and I know where we are now, and I hope they're listening. And so I just want to thank you for that and for taking the kind of energy that it takes to make the correction. Just needed to say that.
Real quick, if I may, Madam Chair. I need to also recognize Merrill, because Merrill came to me this summer. We've never had a cybersecurity policy as part of our property casualty package. And Merrill got with Bill and said, Rocky, I know you don't like to spend money on things that are not necessary, but we really think in this day and time, this is necessary. So Merrill and Bill, thank you, because there's no telling how much this may have cost us at the end if we didn't have Chubb in our TPA to turn to give us these attorneys, to send us these attorneys and the forensics experts. And but I would like to apologize. I can't explain as to what happened back in 2013, because the $1 million question is, why did FLVS have my information to begin with? And why do they have the student information? I don't teach at FLVS. I'm not a student at Florida Virtual School. And there was some sharing of data that may or may not should have occurred back in 2013, but I can assure you now it's on a need-to-know basis, that if agencies don't have a need to know any personal information about our employees or our students, they're not going to receive it. And if they do receive it, 2 things. It's going to be scrubbed of any compromising Social Security numbers and other types of things, and it's going to be sent in a very secure manner. So this was a good exercise for us, all things considered. I guess I'll keep asking Chris, what was the name of the company? 150 million Americans had their information still. Equifax, and you could go online, and I learned about the dark web. I didn't even know anything about a dark web. Well, there's like this dark web, and I put my name in Equifax, and I've been compromised. I was compromised over 2 years ago and had no idea. And you think the conversation, my phone call to you is hard? Imagine my wife, a 6th grade teacher, checking the mail, because we couldn't wait until after our 5-mile walk. She had to check the mail right before the 5-mile walk, and guess what was in there? The letter that I sent her to let her know her Social Security number was compromised.
I wonder what you talked about, Mr.
Oh. But I want to apologize for the inconvenience, and you just never know. Unfortunately, I think we've all become numb in this day and age about this. And this was a game to these hackers. There was no ransom. They didn't call us and demanding $1 million. It was like some video game for these guys. They get street credit and points for breaching into different government agencies and different organizations. Did it take some time to figure out what happened? Yeah, but I didn't want to run out and say, something's happened. I don't know the answers to any questions, but we know something's happened. Now, in hindsight, if it had been bank information, routing numbers, account numbers, direct deposit information, yeah, I think as soon as that day, I would have been screaming it from the mountaintops. Something's happened. We don't know what. Get to your financial institutions and protect your assets. And we'll get back to you later once we figure everything out. This wasn't the case in this situation. Yeah, we had a number of people like you, Madam Chair, and my wife and others. Their socials were out there, but that was pretty much the extent of the worst of it. Not that that's not bad, but there was no financial information whatsoever. But this was a good learning experience for us, and I'm sorry that it happened. I apologize to you. I sent a postcard to myself. I mean, I was part of it as well. But Jillian, Bill, and Merrill, thank you for your leadership and helping us kind of sail the ship through this storm.
Thank you, Jillian. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick clarifying question, I think. If you could just restate for the people with social security numbers that were compromised, we did provide some level of service to them, right? Financial.
Credit monitoring, so we are providing at no cost to them credit monitoring for those who have social security numbers that were compromised. For those who have personal identifying information compromised, they are receiving personal identity protection. So it's two different packages of support.
Right.
And neither one of them costs any of the victims anything.
Very good.
And when you log on to do it, I mean, it actually tells you your cost is $0. So to any teachers out there who've been reluctant to do it, it took 3 minutes. And
my understanding is much easier on the web. So we would encourage them to go on and log in and do it online.
Yep.
Ironically.
All right. Thank you, Jillian. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of the IT folks back there. We know y'all don't like recognition, but we love you. 5.05 instructional materials. Jillian, you staying with us, I'm assuming?
Yes, I am. And Mr. Williamson will be joining me shortly. There are multiple instructional materials items before you on this evening's agenda. There's a report to be heard, which we're going to do now, which is an update to our instructional materials process. And we shared that information with you, started to in January. There's a public hearing requesting public feedback on the the recommendation for the adopted instructional materials. That is item later on in the agenda, I believe item 19. And then I think there is public comment at that point. And then there's also a third item related to instructional materials, and that is a public hearing on the updates to instructional materials policy, our LCS policy, to have it comply with current Florida statute. So there are three things. Tonight's agenda. In April, because instructional materials is the gift that keeps giving, we'll have three more items in front of you. An agenda item requesting a vote to you, by you, from the superintendent's recommendations, an update regarding funding and costs associated with instructional materials per request from our agenda review update, and a recommendation for a hearing officer in the event that we receive an objection, which is now required under the law, which will follow the potential adoption of the recommended policy changes. So tonight's update serves as an opportunity for us to report to you on our progress since the last instructional materials report in January. A couple of reminders that we shared then. Prior to our review of science instructional materials, a couple of significant changes to instructional materials in Leon County schools occurred. Most notably, for the first time in many years, we have been able to allocate money to all schools for all students K-12. That's not in your PowerPoint. I'm just sharing with you. So for the very first time, because the superintendent is contributing about $500,000 out of general revenue, we will be able to provide every school an allocation for every student in grades K-12 for science instructional materials, and we have that model mapped out for the next 4 to 5 years. Also of importance is to note at this stage that not every science course that is offered in Leon County schools is going through the adoption process. At the secondary level, many of our high schools, many of our middle schools offer what we call singleton courses. So for example, maybe 1 or 2 high schools might offer marine science, but not every high school offers marine science. So we did not move forward with a district adoption on that marine science course for a couple of reasons, but really because we wanted to provide as much control at the school level. So we didn't want an N of 2 people to have different opinions and preferences and then have them fighting about which book we get to it, right? And so we just wanted to allow those schools that have very small and very specific singleton science courses the opportunity to have as much flexibility as possible. So they will adopt off the state adopted list, or they will purchase off the state adopted list for those smaller courses. So again, the idea is that we provide as much local control with as many resources as possible. And so just to make sure we're all on the same page, the courses that have the largest enrollments, and that's K-8 science courses plus biology, chemistry, and physics at the high school level or middle school level, are part of this process. And all students, regardless of course enrollment, those big courses and those little courses are generating instructional materials dollars so that some kind of instructional materials can be purchased. So with that in mind, I asked Mr. Williamson to provide an update on the review process, so how we got to where we are tonight, and that will be part of the PowerPoint.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Mr. Superintendent. So Ms. Gregory has asked me to provide this update for you. So we're going to talk briefly about instructional materials and kind of where we are in the review process. So we could move the slide. So as Jillian stated, kind of prior to review, so we sat down and we looked at all the courses in the district, and we decided that these were our core science courses that had the largest enrollments. And so these were the courses that we did an adoption for this year. As you can see, we covered all of elementary school. We pretty much covered all of middle school as well, and then the large courses at the high school level that we are doing a district adoption for. We go to the next slide. All right. So the curriculum review committee. So the process for an adoption involved us having conversations with our administrators. We asked every school administrator to submit teachers and parents to serve on a curriculum review committee for any course that was applicable to their site. And so we received those names from the schools, and everybody whose name was submitted was invited to serve on the review committee. We had approximately 120 people who served on the committees between teachers and parents, so we did have representation. We did receive representation from every single school so that everybody had a voice as we were looking through the courses. As part of this review process, we did go out and use the Florida State short bid list for instructional materials. And so this is the list of all the materials that publishers have submitted to the state of Florida for adoption. And we invited every single publisher who had submitted a bid to the state of Florida to come to Leon County Schools and present their materials to us. We did have a few publishers who declined. They said, you know, we're a small publisher. We don't think that, you know, there's a chance that you will adopt us, so we declined. But that was their choice. We invited them. But depending on the course, we had anywhere between 2 and our smallest courses only had 2 publishers. Our largest courses had 6, 7, 8 publishers that submitted bids, so certainly was a lot of work for our review committees to go through all those materials. So if we could move to the next slide. So LCS adoption scoring rubric was used for scoring. So we have a standard rubric in our district that we've been using for the last several years for all adoption of instructional materials. So that is what we used. We did share it with committee members, school administrators, publishers, and we posted it online prior to the review process so that anybody who was interested in what we were doing as far as instructional materials review could have that information. So as part of that review, materials were sent to schools by the publishers in late January. And so that was to provide an opportunity for teachers and for review members to have those materials in their school campus so that they could review them prior to coming to the district to actually hear presentations from the publishers. So we had them out for 3 days in February. All the publishers came to our campuses, or to our district office on the 19th to the 21st of February, and they actually sat with every single review committee and they went through their materials, and they were able to ask questions, to answer anything that our review committees wanted to know about the materials. And so once we did that, following those presentations, we gave our review committees an additional week to go back to their campuses and look through their materials again after having heard from the publishers before submitting their final recommendations to us. So they had the materials for approximately 5 weeks at their school campus to look at prior to submitting a final recommendation to us. All right. Can we go back to we're on the scoring. There we go. All right. So as far as scoring goes, as you know, we have a number of schools in our district. Some are large, some are small. We wanted to make sure that all of our schools received a fair amount or equal weighting and having their voice heard and represented. And so we had multiple committees, one committee for each course that was being reviewed. And so what we did as a district for scoring is we invited the schools to send their participants. If a large school said, I have 6 comprehensive science teachers, and I want to send 3 of them to the committee to be a part of that process. And another school that was smaller said, I only have 1 comprehensive science teacher, and they teach 1, 2, and 3. For the school that has a large number of comprehensive science teachers, we took all of their rubrics and we averaged them together to come up with a school average rubric. And then we took all of the school average rubrics and we put them together to come up with a final score. So that way a school was not penalized if they only had 1 teacher versus another school that may have been able to send 3 teachers to a review committee. Can move forward. So with all that said, before you tonight, this is the list of recommended materials from the committee. We submitted this list to the superintendent, who accepted the recommendation of the committees without any modification, which is his executive privilege, but he accepted the full recommendation of the committees, and so we are presenting these materials to you tonight. So once the superintendent had approved these materials, they were placed online on our homepage and are available to the public for review as a digital review, which is required under Florida state statute. And so those have been there for several weeks now. They're required to be there 20 days before this meeting today. And so we have exceeded that time frame and making sure that these materials are available to the public should they wish to review our recommended materials before our hearing tonight. Additionally, in Leon County Schools, we hold a Saturday public preview event. And this is not required in state statute, but it is something that we have done for several years because we want to be as transparent as possible in the adoption process. And so we take all of the recommended materials and we set up the front room in the Howell building, and we open it up for anyone in the public who wants to come and actually hold the physical textbook that we will be adopting. So we did that back on March 10th. For anybody who wanted to do that. We advertised it on our district webpage. We have an adoption website where we put it. We also put it on the district master calendar online so that anybody who wanted to come had that opportunity. Okay. All right, so this is a slide that I think you all have seen before. And so we've changed it a little bit, and so we've checked off everything that is done. And so where we are tonight is you all are going to hold a public hearing. And so if we could move to the next one. So this public hearing is for you all to receive comment from the public should someone wish to challenge or say, we don't want you to adopt this book, or we really love this book. Because at the end of the day, you all are the ones who will be adopting these materials. So you will be hearing from the public should anyone wish to give you any feedback on the materials that the superintendent has recommended to you for adoption. You will not take any action on that tonight. In fact, the statute requires action to take place after the hearing at a separate meeting. And so we will come back to you probably at the April 10th meeting with a recommendation for actual adoption. So tonight you're just hearing what the public has to say. Should you wish, should you adopt these materials that we have recommended to you, a 30-day objection window will open, during which time we're in a holding pattern. And during that time, the public may submit an objection to us saying that we do not believe that you should adopt this book. And there is statutory language clearly defining what an objection is. But should someone file an objection, then we will have to take that to a hearing officer, and then it will, come back to you again for another vote as to whether to uphold the adoption or not. Hopefully, we will not receive any objections. And so if we do not receive an objection to any of our courses, then we will be able to begin purchasing materials in mid-May.
Thank you so much. I think we would all agree a very, very thorough job.
Yes.
If there's anyone here that is waiting to speak on that item, it is going to be following the consideration agenda, so there will be a public hearing at that time. We'll close it and again vote in 2 weeks. Any further comment?
Yes, I wanted to ask a question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Did we allow teachers, I heard you said one school had 3 teachers. Okay, and 3 did not. If a teacher wanted to be a part of it, would that teacher be rejected, or could that teacher be a part of that book review?
So we asked school administrators to submit the names of the people who would represent their school.
So during the official publisher presentation, because we have to pay for substitutes, we only paid for the ones for the teachers who were the official representatives of their school, so like a department chair. However, because we have these other mechanisms to participate, the Saturday public hearing, the online, anybody, teachers who were invited or not, could participate in that.
Okay, all right.
So if I may, Madam Chair, Ms. Lewis Butler, I have a personal accountability officer at my house that I live with.
Okay.
She was a department chair at Montford, the 6th grade science department chair, who was part of this committee and part of this process. And her question was, well, does this committee really matter? Are you going to listen to our recommendations? And I said, if I wasn't, I wouldn't have the committee.
Oh.
That's what you're for. Yes, I'm going to, and like Justin said, that whatever they recommended, they're the ones that are going to be teaching from this book in the years to come. So we accepted 100% their recommendations coming directly from those teachers and administrators. I'm really proud of the work and the plan we have with our textbooks. And I know we had to get with Naomi to get that other $500,000, part of our administrative cuts to push down there. But we're giving more money and more autonomy, more than ever, to Mr. Millard, who I see back there, where we're giving at least $50 per child in grades K2 and 11, 12, and then $90 per child in the tested grades of 3 through 10, and the autonomy and the flexibility. So this adoption, although we're going to adopt district-wide what books, because we don't want some schools using this book, some schools using that book, they will make the ultimate decisions of how many books they need, given the dynamics and the educational needs of their student population. So it gives more dollars than ever in recent years, and more flexibility to our school administrators.
That's great. Thank you.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
ma'am.
Mr. Superintendent, I'm happy to see how we are continuing to be even more transparent in how we go about this particular process, because through the months and our years, some folk have felt that we perhaps had not been. But this spells it out, and it removes the necessary opportunity to have us accused of not allowing the kind of input that we are now. So I thank you for that, and thank the folk who are doing this. It just shows that we continue to try and to hear all voices in what we do.
Thank you. Thank you all for your work. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
5.06 Holocaust Education Resource Center updates, school outreach initiatives, and teacher training. Ms. Barbara Goldstein.
Thank you.
Hello, Superintendent, Madam Chair, and school board members. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about what HERC does, in case you don't know.
How could we not know, Barbara?
How many times did you get in a row? No, tell us, because the public.
I'll give you an update, how's
That's
that?
good.
Okay, because you haven't had an update in how long? A little bit. And then Doreen DeMond's going to come up after me and talk about our educational outreach, which is a new program that we're working on. We're very excited. So, as you know, for the past maybe over 10 years, our main mission is to train teachers for Holocaust education, and they've been receiving resources and speakers, and some of you have come to our conferences. You should have all gotten the flyer that is in front of you, and this is our next big conference on June 11th and 12th. As of today, we're more than 2 months away. We have like 22 teachers already registered. We're very excited from some schools. We have a limit of 50, so we're almost halfway there. And you're all welcome to come out that day. The superintendent usually comes to welcome the teachers. Ms. Wood has been there before, right, at our conference. And everybody else, please join us. It is an amazing experience seeing the teachers actually receiving this and how to take it back to the classroom. And they leave with a bag of books and hear from historians and other professionals. On this conference in June, I'm very excited. We're going to have an author come speaking from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, that she's just going to be releasing her book about the rescue boards. The topic every year is a new speaker and a new topic. This one's America's response to the Holocaust, which we've never done before. And also it ties in with the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, as they're opening a new exhibit very soon relating to America and the Holocaust. So this is going to tie in with American history, with world history in so many ways. And we do a 2-day conference in the summer, which is the June one, and then in the fall we do a 1-day workshop. And the 1-day workshop in October brings in about 75 teachers from all over the district. So with that said, I wanted to say some of the challenges we've had was how to do this more in the schools. We had a great program over a year ago at Child's High School, which was a Holocaust Education Week. We're looking to do it again for the 3rd year at Child's High School. We want to expand it to more schools. And then my vision is a Holocaust class. So just as a little piece of FYI, so on February 14th, when the shooting started in Parkland, I don't know if anybody is aware of this, but just before the shooting started, in the honors Holocaust class, the teacher was teaching about hate. And as they finished up their hate lesson, the bullets started flying. So that teacher lost all of her books and was provided with a whole class set of materials from the Florida Holocaust Center at FAU. So we're here just for that too. We serve this area just like all the other state Holocaust centers. But that kind of really sent a message that those students walked out of that day already getting their hate lesson. On that note, I want to say that a couple of really exciting more announcements. So I just received from the Florida Legislature Department of Cultural Affairs that they're going forward, finally, after the construction is complete at the Capitol, creating a Holocaust memorial at the Capitol. So on that note, if anybody would like to join our Holocaust Memorial Committee, please let me know. We're creating a committee to create this design, and it's going to be for education purposes for the whole state. But since we are in the Capitol, I feel this is our job here, as you guys and as the teachers. So I want to go back to the conference. This conference was announced by email, and if any teachers are in the room, I hope you haven't come sign up for it, and you can all sign up at this website. So I had a really great meeting at Tallahassee Community College, because we have an office at Tallahassee and a center at Tallahassee Community College. And because I was trying to figure out how to get a Holocaust class at some point to reach the most students. So I just met this week with Tallahassee Community College. And so it's on the agenda for the next year to create a Holocaust class at TCC. So this will open up the doors, hopefully, to more high school students to get that class in for the semester. And that will be a way to get out to more students with what we need for the Holocaust mandate. So up there is a picture. I want to go back to the other picture first that I'm really excited. I want to tell a short story. Yes, that one. So if any of you remember Kate Powell and Creed King, they won the National History Fair last June, and they're students at Leon High School. So this was actually taken last June at our last summer conference, and that's their project that they won, and that day they left to go to Washington, D.C. A week before that, I got a phone call from them and said, Mrs. Goldstein, we want to know if we can get your help. And I said, sure. And then once they told me what the project was about, I was really excited because I know a lot about this subject. So the man that they did this project on, his name is Benjamin Ferenz. He's 97 years old, and he's the only living prosecutor from the Nuremberg trials. And they did amazing research, and over 500,000 competitors from the whole country were in Washington, and they called me a week later, emailed me, and said, we won. I was so excited. So to make a story out of this that even makes it better. So then in October, I was at a state conference, Holocaust conference in October for directors, and the director of the United States Holocaust Museum was at this meeting that I was at, and he said, you all have to come on January 30th to our annual dinner, and the guest speaker is Ben Ferencz. So I, of course, rushed up to him. I said, I have 2 students from Leon High School, and they won because they did their project about him. Can they come? They said, absolutely. So it turned out the next picture you'll see is them with him on January 30th. And that's their teacher from Leon High School. And he was amazing. He says, I love having these 2 young girls on my arms. Don't tell my wife.
He looks like a happy
These
guy.
blondes, actually, he called them the young blondes, actually. Don't tell my wife. And she was also 97 years old. But, and to make a better story, so they walked him up on the stage when he was introduced as the guest speaker. I didn't want to bring like all the pictures I have, because I have so many pictures of them hugging him. And it was like, and so the one on the right, Kate, she won. She went home that night. She said to her mother, this was the best night of my life. And her mother said, why? She said, because I met my hero. So just to say that this is a history lesson that they will never forget. And this gives them so much confidence that when I met at TCC, they were trying to figure out how to put this Holocaust class in because their goal is to train students for jobs. I said, this is confidence. This makes anybody can do anything they want to do after doing this.
Didn't we meet them, ladies?
Yes,
They
yes.
came when they came.
They
to the award-
came
Yes.
after they won this, right?
Yes.
So maybe 6 months, maybe about that time, around June,
For this
July, right?
presentation,
Around
yeah.
July.
I think their teacher said that when they found out they were going to the national contest, they took the whole board apart and redid it.
They did. They did.
They were really incredible.
They did.
Great job.
Anyway, so that's the story with them. So I've had many, many other experiences, great stories with students that I still have that I can't share them all, but that's really what makes my job so exciting, I think, when we can touch the students, and we do. And like the Child's high school teacher just contacted me again for the next project, so I'm excited. On that note, I don't want to take up too much time, but please have the teachers sign up, and I'm going to turn over to Doreen about our project with the schools now. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for everything you do for Holocaust education, for our students. They are better off because of you and because of the knowledge that you share with them, so thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Doreen Dumont, the Education Chair for the Holocaust Education Resource Council. I am serving in this capacity as a chair who has organized a project, a school outreach project based on the book, The Crayon Box That Talked. The Crayon Box That Talked is a poem that was selected as a anti-discrimination public service announcement and later turned into the sweetest little book with lots of colors and pictures that you have ever seen. The crayons in the box are different colors and they don't like each other and they don't know why. A child goes to the store, buys the box of crayons, takes them out, lays them out, colors with each of them, and when they see their colors mixed together, they realize that together they make a beautiful picture. It's a wonderful story. The outreach initiative itself is very simple. An elementary school principal will receive a letter from Barbara and myself explaining what HERC is, who we are, what this initiative is, and asking permission for one of our trained volunteers to come out and read this book in the kindergarten, first grade, or second grade class. Upon reading, our readers are being taught in a train-the-trainer format, in that when one of our HERC volunteers is trained to go out and read this book, they go out with another person who's in the learning process, who is the observer, and then the next time that person is able to go to another elementary school and read this book. The process is that the reader goes out to the school, reads the book, donates the book to the classroom, along with classroom materials, lesson plans, and fully documented source materials aligned with Florida standards. This project came out of the needs that were expressed in the evaluations from 2016 and 2017 of our annual Holocaust Educators Conference that Barbara talked about. From 2016 to 2017, we saw a 32% decrease in teacher attendance at our Holocaust conference. The evaluations indicated that teachers wanted to know more specifically, how do we go back to our classroom and implement this material? So a few of us got together, we looked at these evaluation results, and we came up with this process of each of us going out to schools to present this material, provide the teacher with resources, and demonstrate by reading the book. There you go. Okay, so that's it. That's how that came about. This is really data-driven decision-making at its finest, I feel. It's a wonderful project. I hope teachers will sign up for the Holocaust Educators Conference this summer, and I hope that you will encourage principals at all of the schools to receive the request to come by our Holocaust Council volunteers to come and read the book in the classroom, donate the book, and provide the teacher with these materials. Following this outreach initiative, we have plans for other grade level appropriate books and readers for other schools and other grades. We have other possible plans for making brief presentations at teacher meetings at the schools, so you will hear more information and more opportunities from the educational outreach project. And we have one of these books for each of you that we brought this evening. Take this home, read this book, and read it to a child. It is a wonderful book that you will truly enjoy. There are other opportunities in the works with the Holocaust Education Resource Council and other entities that are working together in the schools to teach tolerance, to have other initiatives. Leon County has the demographics to be a leader in the state for teaching tolerance in the classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, what do Jews in 1943 have to do with our children on the playground today? What do you think? Think about the Gentile police officer who has had his job threatened if he doesn't go out and participate in rounding up Jews and other minorities from their homes and taking them out and sending them to the camps. Now, what happens with a student who doesn't get along well at home, who has few friends, but who has the opportunity to join a gang of students who say, we will be your friends if you go beat up that kid? It's a different scenario, but it's the same psychological dynamic. That's what this has to do with. Think about the Jewish person in the home with the Nazis marching down the street, who runs from the home and lives for years pretending to be a Christian, knowing that he or she is Jewish, and at any moment someone might see and look at the curve in his nose or the way he speaks and out him as a Jew, and his life is over. What do you think that has to do with our children on the playground today? Ma'am? And what about the LGBTQ kids who live in fear that they'll be rejected by everyone around them if they are outed? This is what we're talking about when we talk about the lessons from the Holocaust. We're talking about the lessons we have learned from the Holocaust. Who is an in-group? Who is an out-group? What are the dynamics of that group? And how a teacher can learn to teach the class how to identify those dynamics going on in the groups of people around them. This is a conference for teachers. There are a limited number of seats for guests of Barb. and I encourage you to consider attending at least a portion of the conference. You will leave that conference. I will tell you right now, it is not all going to be like chit-chat and laughter. There are going to be difficult moments, but you will leave that conference looking at the people around you, your children, your children's friends, your children's friends' parents in a brand new way. So please support the Holocaust Education Resource Council and our efforts to promote tolerance. Thank you.
Thank you both. That was a beautiful visual, all the crayons in the box. And I think our Title I committee, the discussions we've been having on segregation of our schools, you're going to see some things transpire on mental wellness and anti-bullying.
Nice.
And it all goes hand in hand. It's all about accepting each other and loving each other, and doing away with the hatred, no matter what your color, your race, your religion. And I know we all want to see more of that, so I can't wait. I can't wait to get that book. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Love that. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Before we have a motion, I just want to share with everyone, we had a lengthy agenda review yesterday. We discussed lots of things. A few things get pulled because of that. We had a chance to ask questions and believe that we vetted it thoroughly. So do I have a motion to approve consent?
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Bowen, second by Ms. Lewis Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And that brings us down to 18.01, resolution for reaffirming the school board of Leon County's commitment to providing a safe learning environment for students, teachers, and staff. If I might, I'm going to take liberty here for just a minute as chair. I don't do it very often. But I think we have a lot of people here very interested in this subject. We've all received emails today and phone calls, not just today, but for the past weeks. And I'm going to make a statement here, and I'm pretty sure I'm speaking on behalf of this board and of the superintendent. And I would like to tell you all that Leon County School Board will not be arming teachers, period. We don't sit up here to discuss politics tonight. I hope that this does not lead to a gun control conversation. It does not lead to Democrat, Republican. It does not lead to what we wish the legislature would or wouldn't do, or we're happy that they did or didn't do. Our job up here is to educate children and to keep them safe and to follow the law. And that's what we're going to do. And some people are a little confused about what has transpired. And I just want to share with you what we've been discussing about our choices for a school safety officer. So 726 tells us that each school must have a school resource officer, a school safety officer, which is defined as a law enforcement officer certified under the provisions of Chapter 943 and employed by either a law enforcement agency or by the district school board or an individual trained in the Marshall program in each school. This board has chosen certified law enforcement officials. And we're doing that at our own peril. Okay, the legislature has left us with about a $1.7 million shortfall. And we're not the only county. We're one of 67 counties that has been handed an unfunded mandate. But the risk is too great. The risk is too great to put a gun in the hands of our teachers. Those of you, and I've been in the classroom, many members of this board, this room have been in the classroom, you can't leave your cell phone out for fear that it might get swiped, somebody's gonna drop it on the floor. A locked desk is nothing at a school sometimes. We would like to think that it is, but it's not. Who's gonna cover the insurance for those people carrying guns? What's gonna happen when those guns fall into the wrong hands? The risk is too great. So you're gonna see us reach out to our community with the question, how are you gonna help us fund this? How are you gonna help us? Because it's been required. And we are taking the only route, the best route we know, is to put a certified law enforcement official in every classroom. School. Sorry. Man.
School. She meant school.
Wow.
Go, girl. All right.
She meant school. We don't make promises we can't keep. She meant school.
Every school, man, that would be costly. Could you imagine? And I don't think I've heard from one teacher that feels that they want to be armed, that they want somebody other than a certified enforcement officer in their school. I can't say that I've heard from one that's a proponent of that. So I know we have a lot of speakers on this tonight. I'd like to ask my fellow board members, would we like to hear speakers before we read this proclamation? Yes, we would. Okay.
Yes, we would.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, your first speaker is Sean Cooley. If you could come to the podium, please give us your full name and address for the record, and you're going to have 3 minutes when you start.
Thank you. My name is Sean Cooley. I live at 864 Bannerman Road. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the school board, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you for your support of keeping guns out of our classrooms. I urge you to support this good resolution. If we want to arm our teachers, we need to look at arming our teachers with counselors, with school psychologists, and with nurses. We need to give them the resources that they need, not guns. That's not the answer. I worked in a Title I school, and one day I could be teaching in a classroom one-on-one with a student trying to help him to read, and the next day I could be separating a fight. I can't imagine having a gun on my person with 2 fifth graders at both sides of me. Guns are not the solution. We've all agreed on that. Resources are. And I think any of us in this room who've been in a classroom know that trust is the way that we solve this problem. And we can't have trust as teachers or as instructors if we have guns on us or on our person. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, next speaker is Colonel Ronald M. Joe. If you could please come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes once you start.
Good evening. Thank you, Board Chair, Vice Chair, and Superintendent. I'm Ronald Joe. I'm at 5105 Red Fox Run, Tallahassee, Florida. And I'm glad to hear you say a part of what you said will keep me from saying what I was going to say. Bethel Baptist Church is having a meeting on the 26th of April at noon on Thursday. It is to bring about 1,000 faith leaders to do a demonstration to talk about our support for the fact that we need to get guns, certain kind of guns, and it's not Democratic nor is it Republican. I spent 30 years in the Army. I've been shot at in anger, and I've fired back in anger. The AR-15 that we're talking about, that's an automatic weapon that's in our society, has no place in our society, along with, if you will, the curved ammunition pouches and the fact that we don't do the proper background checks to make sure that people who should not have the guns do not have it. I think what you said here tonight is very important to being able to continue to have education in our schools. But I think we still have to go the extra step to say that we need to get out, we need to get voting, we need to have you vote, we need to have you talk to the people that care about you. This audience needs to care. We need to get out, we motivate ourselves, we need to vote, and we need to get in our legislatures and in our state houses and in our national houses the idea, if we listen at the children who are out demonstrating to say to us that it is a time in our history that we should say as a civilized society, we do not need AR-15s and automatic weapons with bump stocks in our society. No matter what you do, even the health and the mental help that you need to give to our teachers, we need to stop having these guns in our society. So I encourage you to still, although you've done the wonderful thing you've done tonight, let's go the extra step. Let's say to our nation that we don't need AR-15s, bump stocks, and special guns and special ammunition pouches in our nation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
yes,
may I just ask the current speaker before he takes his seat, Colonel Joe? Colonel Joe, you mentioned that this march is on April the 26th.
At noon.
At noon. Where will it start? Who's invited? Do you register? What is going to happen?
Everyone is invited. It will start at Bethel Baptist Church at noon, and we will march from Bethel Baptist Church to the front of the old Capitol. And if you can't march with us, you're invited to come and be there with us. We just want to say to these children who are out demonstrating that we are with you. We care about you, and we need to show our nation that we're tired of. I don't want to. I've got a granddaughter. I got a wife back here, first of all.
Okay. All right.
Who's been a teacher for 45 years.
Yes, that's right.
And I've got a granddaughter who just graduated from FAMU, and probably because of her grandma, she's a teacher, and she's been teaching about 45 days. And both of them have said to Granddad, we don't need to have weapons in the classroom. So that part was something I didn't do here. But this march has three different things with it. One is, of course, to make a show to the young people in our country that we support them. Secondly, the restoration, if you will, and yes, it's voting. We need to vote for Amendment 4 so that people who have served their time in prison, when they come out, their voting rights and their citizenship will be re-given to them. And then just to be there as rededication. Let us show the people who have lost their lives, the children who've lost their lives.
Thank you, Colonel.
Across our country that we care about.
We're going to try to move on only because we're trying to keep
Understood.
everybody 3 minutes. Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. And thank you for answering my question. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing that. Thank you.
Next speaker, Brian McLean. If you could please come, give us your name and address for the record, and your 3 minutes will begin once you've started.
My name's Brian McLean. I live at 3387 Woodhill Drive. I'm also a high school teacher in Leon County Schools. Thank you, Superintendent Hanna, for your participation in events concerning school safety. Thank you, board members, for your interest and efforts as well. There are many reasons to be optimistic for improvement of campus safety and gun violence. I hope the board and administration will consider just a few of these items as we move forward. We're ready to move forward. Communication can happen, doesn't cost much at all. Campus safety needs to be addressed with direct and ongoing involvement of students, staff, and teachers. This would be an excellent opportunity to build upon shared decision-making processes within each school's overall school improvement efforts. High schools need to have an active shooter practice early in each school year. High schools need to have more than one active shooter drill each school year. Consider using the district's climate survey or versions thereof earlier in the year while there is still time to improve campus safety during the year, and not after the school year is over. Many interested parties will have moved on by that point, especially if there are challenges needing to be addressed. Assess the efficiency of the process whereby teachers are informed when any of their students are arrested for certain levels of crimes as required by statute. Assess the level of awareness and requests by teachers asking for the removal of disruptive students from their classrooms as available by statute as one possible step for identifying students who may be of risk for harming themselves or others. And board members, please visit each school in your zone. Observe, visit, talk to multiple students, staff, and teachers about school safety. I'm confident that the citizenry of Leon County place your participation in addressing the safety of our students and employees at the top of your list of responsibilities. Thank you.
A copy of your a copy of your specific recommendations. Can you email that to?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and the last speaker on this item, Scott Mazer. If you could come, give us your full name, address, and you will have 3 minutes once you begin.
My name is Scott Mazer. I live at 3319 Dartmoor Drive, Tallahassee, Florida 32312. I am the president of the Classroom Teachers Association, and I wanted to kind of reiterate what you said. It's not about me. It's much bigger than us. And because of that, I wanted to thank all the teachers that came out tonight, their spouses, and retired teachers as well. If you guys would please stand to show your support for this resolution. I wanted to start off by saying that one of the most fundamental responsibilities of being a school teacher is to build relationships and to communicate so that you can build trust. And I've heard from a number of teachers some of the concerns. I mean, it's crazy that we're here having this conversation, to be honest with you. For a kindergarten student to come into a classroom and hug their teacher and have to wonder whether or not they have a weapon on them. I support wholeheartedly our group, the Leon Classroom Teachers Association, supports this resolution. We understand that this also comes at a certain amount of peril. The Guardian program has money in it for the district. And that Guardian program, by circumventing and putting SRO officers in, puts the district at, I think it was about $600,000 for additional SROs that come out of the general fund, if I remember correctly, from a district advisory council meeting. So it's gone up.
Yes.
It has.
So with that said, I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of understood a couple of things that some folks have been saying. And this is not anything other than just saying that I support this, we support this. Some may say that it's shocking that we're playing politics at the expense of our kids. We say no. Some may say that if an incident does occur in Leon County Schools by not arming teachers, that it's going to be on your hands, and we say no. At the end of the day, we understand that what it is that you're doing is you're choosing to create an environment for our students that makes them feel safe, loved, wanted, and where people believe in their ability to learn. That's what a school's supposed to be for. I have a daughter who came home. I got 3 children in the school system. And I've heard things of when the fire alarm goes off, don't run out now. When certain things happen, this is what you have to do to be safe. And so this topic has been about the symptoms, not about the root cause. And that's part of what was kind of mentioned earlier about school counselors. We have a system where our guidance counselors, I think it was Cameron Fink, said that he put in for a request to talk to a counselor, and 3 weeks out was when he was going to be able to do so. So this is a much bigger issue than what we're talking about, and that's why I appreciate the fact that all the teachers are here tonight, because if we don't start paying attention to the process, finish up real quick, sorry. The 47 cents that they allotted us for students is going to have a detrimental effect coupled with all the other decisions that are being made.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Are you any more speakers on this subject? No? Okay. We'll read the proclamation then. School Board of Leon County, Florida, resolution.
There's a speaker at the
Oh, we have one more?
So if I may, Madam Chair, if I may, before you read.
Did you fill out a card, sir?
Before you start my clock. 2727 West Pensacola Street. First, I want to thank Scott and all the teachers that came out in support of this proclamation. I don't think you need to hear me say anything else. I've said enough. Never can be accused of saying what's politically correct. I think you all know how I feel about this issue and what you said as well, Colonel Joe. Our primary responsibility, whether it's the superintendent or board members or teachers, is to protect our children, and by all means necessary. And we're going to do the very best we can, but I did want to share some information with you. I've talked to Merrill about the money that we already spend in addition to what we receive currently in Safe Schools. So right now we receive about $1.2 million in Safe School allocation. We add an additional $1.2 million out of the general fund to support Chief Hunkiar and all of his staff, all of our Raptor, we check against the sexual predator list. We also, at our schools, at Lincoln and other schools, have hall monitors. Those aren't in the staffing plan. They're hall monitors that they cash in basically teaching units because we can't do without those people. And we talk if the legislature would have asked me, from my experience in 30 years at the secondary level, we need more eyes watching and monitoring who's coming and going off of our campuses. Yes, we're appreciative of the dollars, but it does not come close to covering or meeting this mandate, and they're trying to almost squeeze us into a Guardian program. And I am so honored and proud that all 5 of you, and I know, Karina, I can say 6 of you, support me and support all of these teachers and say, no, we're not going to even entertain arming teachers. And now they've taken a step back and walked that back. We really didn't mean teachers. We meant non-instructional staff, so custodians and others. I mean, it's just, anyway, I've said enough about that, but just know that we already come out of our general fund, and I know that's a concern to you, Ms. Wood, and others, of about $1.2 million to enhance what we already received. So now we're going to receive additional dollars but it won't cover the mandate. We're in negotiations with the Sheriff's Department and others to see how we're going to do it. But again, I can't thank you all enough and us as a community. I think it speaks volumes in sending a clear message across the state of Florida and to our community that we're not even considering this as an option. So I'm proud to stand with the teachers and with the board in with this proclamation. So you're up, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, we're ready.
Madam Chair, if I may, just
Yes, ma'am.
quickly. Yeah, so from the student side, it's such a sigh of relief to be able, or to know that teachers won't be armed here in Leon County. It's such a major issue and honestly seemed so absurd when they were actually considering it. But just to know that here in Leon County, we will continue to have classrooms that foster a feeling of safety and trust between the student and the teacher, again, is such a relief. It's so important for students to feel comfortable, not just to go to their teacher for asking questions, but also if they are having trouble at home, because they often don't have anyone else to turn to. And schools are supposed to be safe spaces, and it's just so important. And teachers have so much more to do nowadays than just teach. So adding an extra responsibility on them, I think would be detrimental to to schools. But yeah, just a thank you to this board and just Leon County for ensuring that students, are safe and feel safe, and knowing that that doesn't include teachers being armed in any capacity, other than with pencils and nurses and all of that. It's a good feeling. So thank you.
Are you going to entertain comments?
Yes, do you want to do it now or
That's
after?
up to
Either
you.
one.
No.
Well, since we're here, go ahead. Well, go ahead.
I think Roseanne was wanting to talk for a while.
You go ahead.
I'll speak. As I was thinking, out of the mouth of babes, please allow me to call you that, young lady, because that is exactly what I was thinking and feeling. How in the world can we expect our babies, our resources that we are so proud of, to step into a classroom where ABCs are supposed to be taught and the 1, 2, 3s, and then they've got to have a gun on their hip maybe? I say no. I say steadfastly, absolutely in opposition to never arming a teacher as long as I'm on this board. Now, that's a mouthful. I think that today, I need the audience to know that my signature is on that resolution. I was not coerced. It's on there because I honestly think that we have an expectation that all of our employees and our students should feel safe, and that we should never have to worry about where the gun is in the classroom, or if there is a gun in the classroom. And while I am certain that I believe that the people with the guns on the campus ought to be trained, I maintain that they need to be carefully and continuously vetted, as they have been, to make sure that they understand what they are doing and the price that they will have to pay when they are in these schools. And I don't think we need to dance around that. This is serious stuff that we're talking about, and this is a crucial time in our community. So my signature is on the resolution. I want safety for all of our students, all of our employees, and I want learning to take place. And yes, going back to the counselors, I still am pushing for that. I'm not giving up on that, and I think there are opportunities yet that our counselors can provide. I'll speak more about that a little bit later, but in as much as there was just a little bit of hesitation on who was going to speak, that's where I changed. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. No guns for our teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. Want to say something?
No, it was your idea, so I want you to talk,
Well,
and then I have something to say.
Well, I really appreciate the cooperative nature of this board and the superintendent, that we are all on the same page. And, Scott Mazur said, he's right, this is not a political issue. This is a safety issue. And we don't want anyone to make a mistake in the school. And it's happened already in California and Georgia. teachers were armed and guns went off, and we can't have that. This is not what teachers or principals or anybody else is trained for. You don't want your surgeon to answer the call when someone's in trouble. You want the police to show up at your house. You don't want the surgeon to show up. And, you know, when you go to your surgery, you don't want the police to show up to do the surgery. It's just that simple. We're all, you know, in education, whether we're the principal or the social worker, we're trained and we have expertise in certain areas. But, you know, training in gunmanship is not part of our training, and we don't want to take a chance with our students. And this is not partisan. This is safety, and safety comes first. And the other thing I'd like to say, so you know, I think people should not be saying that. The other thing is that the kinds of things that Barbara Goldstein and the HERC, they're doing, teaching our students tolerance, providing a safe environment where bullying is not allowed, and where students also feel safe to go to a teacher and say, I'm worried about so-and-so, can we get them some help? Because that's the biggest safety measure of all. If we create climates in our schools where people feel comfortable talking to the staff and expressing their concerns, and that we have some mental health counselors for those kids who need them. And I am grateful that we are getting some funding for that. And so I want to thank the legislature for that. I do say that this officer at every school right now is an unfunded mandate, because we have got to figure out as a board and the superintendent of how we're going to make this happen, because we don't have enough funds for it. So that's going to take the community helping us. And I'm glad you're in negotiations with the sheriff and law enforcement, because we're going to need the whole community to step up, because these are our children. And they're not just the school system's children, they're everybody's children. They're all taxpayers' children. So I'm looking forward to a solution for that, and I feel we can get one. But you know, we did get let down in terms of a mandate that wasn't funded. But I think we're committed to saying we're not going to take more money out of the general fund to do this. We don't have enough money for pencils and paper and teacher salaries. We had to figure out a different way than taking it from the general fund. That's not fair to teachers, not fair to our kids. So I feel very strongly about that. And, you know, I look forward to us passing this resolution tonight.
Thank you. Hold on, Ms. Rasmussen. I'll get, and then you're last. Go ahead.
I want to say, first of all, that my name is also on that resolution, and it's not something I did lightly. I watched, and I've been a part of the Florida legislative process for more than 30 years, and I sat in the gallery and I watched the agony on the floor of the House and the Senate over this vote. And I think, even though I'm supporting this, and I think I agree that I'm frustrated by parts of it. And let me stop and say for one thing. If anybody wants to hear our conversation about this, I think you should go back and look at the video from the first night we had a meeting here after the Parkland massacre, because we were really thoughtful about all of the different things, the whole package. I mean, all the mental health pieces and everything that we wanted to do to support our children and our teachers. Tonight, we're more focused on this one piece. And so I feel compelled to speak to that for a minute. But I don't want this to be taken out of context around the broader conversations that we've all been having since February 14th. That said, I did watch the legislature agonize about this. I saw people that I knew to their very core voted for this bill, even though it didn't go far enough, and even though it went too far. And I saw a different group of people that voted no because it didn't go far enough and because it went too far. And what I think we have to be really careful about is, we just talked about the crayon box. There are a lot of people in this community that want our kids to be safe and care about our teachers that feel very differently than the conversation we're having here tonight. And we have to learn to listen to them, and maybe they will listen to us, and we can work together to keep our children safe. I don't think for 1 second that there's any citizen in this county that wants for our children to be shot in school. But they may have a different opinion about how to approach that. And we have to talk to them too, because they live here too, and they're taxpayers too. And our legislators, this doesn't work for us here. But I suspect there may be some rural counties where this is the only option they have. Listen, if we paid the price tag that I saw yesterday for a sheriff's deputy at every school, we're not going to be able to afford to have a teacher in every classroom. So while I appreciate the idea that we don't want, and by the way, lest anyone think that we didn't read the bill, it doesn't say teachers. If you're exclusively a teacher, you're not allowed to have a firearm. This is for other personnel where there may be a former military or ROTC or somebody else. I'm not proposing that. I have signed this thing. And I am in concert with almost everyone in the room. But I think we have to be careful not to alienate other people that we need at the table that are part of this community, that are part of our taxpayer base, that can help us find a way. I heard a discussion one time, it was a big debate, and it was Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. When they took the labels off and they said, how can we talk about getting everyone home safe at night? Then the conversation took place. So we are talking about I'm so proud of our students and their civic engagement, but I would be proud if we had students that were on a different side of an issue too, because getting involved, this is what democracy looks like. But we have to listen to each other. And I think we run the risk of, I know things were said in the heat of the moment, some labels were hung out there and people, were offended, and I just want to encourage us to think about our own lessons, the color of the box, the crayons in the box, about being civil and modeling for our students ways to be active politically and civically in a way that can get us all to the same place I think we all want to be, which is to have our kids and our teachers and our staff and our entire community safe. So I just felt compelled to at least be that one voice of let's listen to each other and work together to get there, and not, but anyway, I'm voting for this.
Ms. Lewis-Butler.
Yes. Okay. Safety has always been a priority of mine. And that was every time we did the mission statement for Leon County Schools, it was always safety first. And when the honoring of teachers came out, I haven't been a teacher for 30 years myself. I can imagine I'm having to teach science with a gun on my shoulder. And the main thing we want teachers to do, focus on students, teaching daily, and preparing for testing. Teachers have so much to do. And can you imagine adding a gun to a teacher purse, a holster? That's more responsibility. No way we want teachers to be armed. No way. Teachers have to teach and prepare our students for the future. If you have to worry about safety while teaching with a gun, then there will be not enough good teaching going on, because you'll be worried half the time about safety and about where's my gun. It's taken away from a teacher. So we want teachers to be, as Leon County teachers have always been, focusing on students. Students are your first priority. And safety, as this school board, I've always said, law enforcement, training that will have a gun. We're going to have a person in every school with some type of gun, but it would not be a teacher. It would be law enforcement or a person that's been trained to carry a gun. And because, as you know, we only got 1.2 million from the state. I remember when I read in the paper, I saw 400 million. I said, we're going to be ready. But 7 counties, by the time they got through allocating the money out, we only end up with 1.2 million. Now, this board and the superintendent, we have to see where we can find the rest of the monies to make very sure we meet the mandate. And we will meet the mandate, because we will have a person in every school. Now, teachers will not be armed, and don't worry about that. I know as a teacher, I would have to go back and learn. I'm a biology major. Can you imagine I have to go to training to carry a gun, to learn how to shoot the gun to protect my students? That's more additional responsibility, and something will go lacking. Teaching will go lacking. So, no teacher will have a responsibility of being armed in Leon County schools by this board. I will be voting for the resolution today. I want you to know that mental health program, I'm excited about that we get monies for that to use in our schools to work with our students. And that will help teachers as well, because when you have students that with behavior concern, you'll be able to have a person to send that students to help you help you teach. Teachers need all the help they can get in teaching. And I thank you for what you do. Teach daily. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis Butler, and all the board members and superintendent. I figured I spoke for everybody, and I think we all are on the same page on this, including the superintendent, and I'm glad we all stand together. The resolution of reaffirming the School Board of Leon County's commitment to providing a safe learning environment for students, teachers, and staff. Whereas many in our Leon County community have expressed concern for the safety and well-being of our students and have indicated that policymakers should strive to ensure that all Leon County students continue to receive an education in a safe, secure, and supportive environment. And whereas the school board recognizes that gun violence and threats of gun violence in schools undermine the sense of security that students should have in their schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the school board declares that Leon County schools will only allow state of Florida criminal justice standards and training certified law enforcement officers to be armed in our schools. Be it resolved that the school board of Leon County, Florida declares its intent to continue its long-standing school resource deputy program, which places certified law enforcement officers in the public schools in Leon County to enhance students' educational opportunities by promoting a safe and secure learning environment. Be it further resolved that the school board implores the Florida legislature to increase the annual appropriation for certified law enforcement officers to serve as safe school officers, to ensure that school boards across the state do not have to trade curriculum needs for enhanced safety. Adopted this 27th day of March, 2018, by the members of the school board of Leon County, Florida, at a publicly held meeting, and signed by Rocky Hanna, Superintendent, and all 5 school board members. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move the approval. I'm sorry.
Fine. I second it.
Moved by Ms. Bowen, second by Ms. Wood. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
You want to call them up here and take a picture? You okay with that? So the people in red that have been waiting for like the last 2 hours for this moment, you want to come up here and take a picture? Y'all like
Yes, yes.
Oh, wow.
My mother
I mean, I know you're going to say that, but I believe that too. So long as you got done. Because you did good work.
How is it, Chris? You get everybody? All right, guys, thanks for coming. Thank you. All right, who's this?
I need you to go write that number and give it to
All right, we actually still have agenda items here. We're not finished.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
As they are exiting the room, and we're very proud that they have been with us the length of time that they have been, I really am just so proud to be a part of this board with the hardworking women and to show their zeal for what we do. And I have to say that Ms. Woods is just a wonderful addition. That sounds a little late, but she works hard, so I just needed to say that. All right, Rosie?
Thank you, thank you.
She did. She did.
Okay, now.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you for delivering.
All right.
Okay, where are we?
18.02. Superintendent recommends approval to advertise amendments to policy 6330, selection of professional service providers for construction projects for a public hearing and adoption on March 27, 2018. We have someone speaking or no?
Danny probably is speaking on the item, but there are no speakers that I'm aware of for the public hearing. You can open it though, and then we'll
Back to us.
close it. But
This is approval to advertise.
public hearing and adoption.
18.02?
It says approval to advertise, and then it says for a public hearing and adoption. So is it for advertisement or public hearing and adoption? Okay, then it's the second part that got me confused. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So then no public hearing. He just speaks.
Okay.
Oh,
Good evening.
Good evening.
good evening.
Just a little history before, item 18.02 is advertised policy 6320. Little history, September of 17, the board approved 6320.02 continuing contracts. They raised the limits from 500,000, oops,
I think you mean 6330. Do you?
well, this is history on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
why we're
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Forgive me.
September of 17, the board approved 6320.02 continuing contracts, raised the continuing contracts from 500,000 to 1.5, more in line with Florida Statute 287.055. With that said, this policy 6330 addresses the $500,000 limit in it. It also cleans up some language where we were specifying the position that appointed the committee, now it's saying superintendent's designee. Also addressing where, and we do know the board's intent to have public members on the committees. It addresses may instead of shall, because we did have the public citizen not show up at one meeting. So therefore, instead of audit criticism, we will continue to have public members, but it avoids criticism. And that's what we're asking.
So we are approving advertising. Okay.
Approval to
Motion to approve.
Approval?
Second. Motion by Ms. Wood, second by Rasmussen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.03, public hearing and adoption. Superintendent recommends following a public hearing, approval of amendments to policy 2520, selection of and adoption of instructional materials effective March 28. We are opening the public hearing.
No speakers, Madam Chair.
No speakers. Public hearing closed. Do I have a motion for adoption?
Move for the adoption, Madam Chair. Bowen.
Second. Moved by Bowen, second by Wood. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.04, public hearing and adoption. The superintendent recommends following a public hearing, approval of amendments to policy 8390, animals on district property effective March 28, 2018. Public, any speakers?
No speakers, Madam
No
Chair.
speakers. Motion
Approval?
Second.
moved by Wood, second by Rasmussen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.05, public hearing and adoption. The superintendent recommends following a public hearing, approval of amendments to policy 4600, classification specifications effective March 28, 2018. Speakers?
No speakers, Madam
No
Chair.
speakers. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Lewis Butler, second by Rasmussen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.06, superintendent recommends approval to advertise amendments to policy 6320, purchasing and contracting for goods and services for a public hearing and adoption on March 27, 2018.
I move the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Bowen, second by Wood. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.707 was moved to information items. 18.808 was pulled. 18.09, Superintendent recommends approval of the 2018-19 Collegiate High School program between Tallahassee Community College and the Leon County School Board.
Move approval.
Second. Moved by Bowen, second by Wood. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.10, Superintendent recommends approval of the verification of Florida Inventory of Schoolhouse, otherwise known as FISH.
Move approval. Second.
Moved by Ms. Lewis Butler, second by Bowen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.11's been pulled. 18.12, Superintendent recommends approval of the RAM construction and development. Danny, you gonna read this one, so we're not duplicating?
1812 is contract approval, a recommendation for contract approval for RAM construction. There'll be the construction manager at risk, Cobb Middle School underground water line replacement. Their guaranteed maximum price for a project is $849,892.38.
Approval.
Second.
Moved by Wood, second by Lewis Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 18.13.
1813 is a recommendation for the approval of council contracting Inc. for the construction manager at risk at Riley Elementary underground water line replacement. Their guaranteed maximum price is $593,200. $593,253.68.
I move approval.
Second. Moved by Bowen, second by Wood. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
18.14, this is for RAM construction. There's construction manager at risk for Fairview Middle School, new construction, remodel, and renovation site improvement. This is a phased project. It was a not to exceed $20 million. This is allowing them to get started on the demo. They're giving us a guaranteed maximum price for the demo and some of the floor replacement of $756,407.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Lewis Butler, second by Bowen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Demolition, you mean? Demo means demolition. Right, I just want to
yes.
make sure.
Sorry.
They thought we were demonstrating a project.
Okay, demolition.
18.15, 2016-17 Annual Financial Audit Report.
Very happy to present this audit report.
Let's hear it.
This audit
Speak into the
report
microphone, please.
for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2017, not only has an unqualified opinion, but it has 0 findings.
Oh,
Hey,
my.
can you say that again? How many?
Good news.
That has not happened.
I just counted, I've worked for 5 superintendents. I've never had an audit
Either.
that had 0 findings since I've been here.
All right.
There's really very few audits in the state to get 0 findings, especially when the Auditor General does it. And for districts our size, it's very rare, our size and bigger. Sometimes the smaller districts, I have a friend down south who brags to me every so often how many's it. But he's got like 1 school. But still, if you can get through an audit with no findings. Now, there's a lot of people that need to be recognized for this.
Yes.
In my department, Tamika Billingsley worked really hard especially on the capital asset side to get this. That was our biggest problem, getting that straight. Naomi on the budget does a great job. She had things that she had to work out that we got fixed. Dina over in the payroll department. June Kale, purchasing director. If you got a crappy purchasing director, you're dead. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You get a finding every year. She's really good.
Yes, she is.
She is one of the best.
Yes, she is.
When all this process started, especially with the fixed asset problem, Michelle Gale was tasked with putting a committee together, and she did that, and this was like 2 or 3 years ago. This has been a process of about 3 years.
Exactly.
So that committee met, came up with some good recommendations for some procedures. That was all important. Hired a man named Mr. Dwyer, who does a great job. He's a military guy. He's by the book. And finally, we put Manny Joannis over there this year, and he made a tremendous strides in getting our inventory process down to where we feel good. So on the audit committee side, I didn't get to have any of them here. I talked with Mr. Jim Davis today. He wanted me to relay to you guys how rare it is not to have an audit finding when you get an audit report. It really is. This won't happen too many times.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
You know, I've
Let's
been
not
here
let this become the bar.
over 20 years. This is my first time, and so anyway, we're real proud of this report, and we hope you accept it.
Move approval.
Didn't really have anything to talk about, yeah.
Yes, we do.
Anybody else?
Second.
Yes,
Yes.
moved by Rasmussen, second by Wood and Bowen and the whole
and
group.
everybody. Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimous.
I want to
Oh,
ask
going
a
out on a good
question,
note.
please.
Yes, Ms. Bowen.
Thank you, Meryl. You know, we've been working on this, and the reason that at least two of us stood is because
We lived through it.
we have lived through many challenges. That was
Right.
very
What was the
ladylike,
most
Joe.
audit findings
the
y'all
word.
remember?
We'll never tell. But I will say
Please
this,
don't.
this is a first, and we're so happy. And Meryl, thank you for calling the names of those individuals that you called. We know what goes into this because we get to be chair on an occasional basis. And when you get letters from the legislature that say, if you don't do this and that, we're going to haul your person down there and you'll have to put your hand up, and we want to know what happened to the dollars. So we're sworn to at least balance a budget. And so to hear you say that for the first time, it's wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, my sisters on the board. It can be a little scary, you know, and I'll just say, yes, girlfriend, we did it. We did it. Meryl, I have to ask this, and I really am sincere in this happiness. What is the name of that award that your group has gotten each year? I was trying to think of it because when we out at our Florida School Boards Association, many people want to know, well, what it is we do that you get that award. We don't do anything, but you do. So what's the name of that award that we've gotten for the last 18 years?
It's 19 years. We got it again
Oh.
this year.
Who's counting?
Show him, Daddy, you got it.
Just
It's called
asking.
the Association of School Business Officials Meritorious Budget Award.
All right, I'll get you to write it down for me later. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
We're going to our home and tell
That's
them.
wonderful. Thank you, Meryl.
Because we always want to, they want to know.
Yeah, they're jealous.
Do they?
Envious. Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may take
Yes.
a moment, and I see Pat Weaver here. Pat, thank you for your service on the
Yes,
audit
thank
committee
you.
and enhancing what we're doing and along those lines to monitor what's going on. And Meryl, you couldn't have a better going away present. I mean, this will be the last time that you have to worry about a state auditor, and to go out with zero findings is a true credit to your professionalism, and I can't thank you enough for the way you've served me plus 4 other school superintendents over the last 30-plus years. I mean, couldn't do it without you. I mean that. Could not do it without you, and I can't thank you enough.
in that, you know, so.
You know, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
But when we talk about our schools, and there are some positions at the district level that we need.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of them, because we would not survive without it, but.
So if anybody's watching, we're about to begin recruiting for a chief
CFO.
financial officer, because currently Mr. Wimberly's wearing 2 or 3 hats, I think.
We're still doing that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, really, no kidding.
Yeah,
If
no, we
there's
know.
an accountant out there that would like to,
Knows a lot about.
would like to inherit a finding free audit.
Right, exactly.
That should be an incentive, right?
Hope
Really,
so.
that
No
is-
pressure
Costs more
there.
money,
Really,
costs more-
that is a,
Yes.
if I was coming, looking for a job, I'd want to come to a
Oh.
place
Yeah,
that didn't
like
have
us.
a finding, because what that means is you've got some good processes in place.
Absolutely.
You want to go to a place that's all messed up. That's tough.
Totally. Madam Chair, would you allow me one more moment?
Of
to
course.
just thank Merrill and his team, and the superintendent thanked the audit committee. But that committee has been chaired for a few years now by Alan Stutz. And Ms. Weaver, of course, is a wonderful addition to that committee. Mr. Stutz lost his wife a few days ago, so we send him our sincere condolences along with our thanks to him for serving in the face of the medical challenges and the illnesses that he was undergoing. So we thank the committees who make, the citizens of Leon County who make the kind of sacrifices they do to help us to get where we are. Okay?
That's right.
I needed to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
19.01, information items, upcoming meetings presented. 19.02, public hearing prior on the adoption of new instructional materials. So this would be public hearing for the science adoption that we talked about earlier. We will not be voting on this, but we'll open the public hearing. Any speakers?
Yes, Madam Chair. Brian McLean, if you could come up, give us your name and address for the record, and once you have spoken, you will have 3 minutes.
My name's Brian McLean. I still live at 3387 Woodhill Drive. Connections, communication, continuous improvement. I offer the following for your consideration and moving forward for future processes that involve the review, selection, purchase, and evaluation of instructional materials. The national science standards have been revised. This is no small matter. And these next generation science standards not only have discipline or content objectives been updated and revised, but practices and cross-cutting concepts are essentially equally emphasized. All students need to have educational experiences competitive with the rest of our nation. All teachers need to retool and have the resources and professional development support to make this happen. Since the last district adoption for science, which was extremely limited due to the recession, there are new state science standards. For years, many of our students have been using materials that are neither correlated nor directly addressing the current state science standards. For example, these texts. There are downsides with the purchase processes being moved to each school. Students at different secondary schools may have fundamentally different levels in the quality and range of access. I fear they will continue not to have access to materials that directly support the state and national science standards, nor the improved technology and web-based resources as compared to those published 14 years ago. Utilize available expertise of our community partners in the process. We need to involve our community's universities, colleges, employers, state government, and private enterprises at every opportunity. Early training of all committee members, including identify subject-specific tools for removing the instructional materials. Additionally, steps to minimize possible appearances of ethical or legal impropriety, including but not limited to private conversations and meetings with publisher representatives or acceptance of individual benefits. Consideration as to whether packages complement additional requisites of courses such as human sexuality, safe laboratory experiences, and controversial topics. Visit the purpose of adopting a single title across all levels of a course. While this makes aspects of inventory easier, my students' experiences have been mismatched, not differentiated for years. We have tended to go with mid-level materials, leaving high-achieving students thirsting for challenge, and many, many others with materials not available or not matching their needs. Our current outdated materials do not support too many students. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another speaker, I believe.
Mr. Brian, so what are you recommending for science? Mr. Brian, so what are you recommending?
I am in favor of the recommendations that the superintendent is passing along. It's not intended to hold up the process at all, but in continuous improvement, I think there are steps that can be gained in how Leon County Schools reviews and does the textbook adoption process. Okay. It is not a 7-week process.
So were you on the review?
I was not nominated by my school's administration to participate.
If you could email in your recommendations, I know that's something we'd probably enjoy receiving and looking at for future, that would be great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, no other speakers on this.
No other speakers? Nope. Okay.
Thank you for taking the time to come out and speak on 2 issues. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, so public hearing closed. No motion required. No. Reports from board liaisons, none to date. Superintendent's comments,
Peanut butter and jelly time.
Sorry, I
Where's
didn't know
the
you were going
bread?
to speak on that. All right, what I planned to do.
No, that's it. You see it all in front of you. Peanut butter and jelly. We started on Monday. I'm having a PB&J cook-off with Montanaro and Rick Miner from Second Harvest at 5 a.m. next Monday. I'm sure all of you will be up watching
A cook-off?
with my mother. So yeah, we're excited. I think we were just under 10,000 pounds last year. We set the goal of 10,000 pounds this year. Kids are excited, very excited about our PB&J drive, and they'll go to Second Harvest, which will then distribute these resources throughout the summertime as our kids are looking for a place to get something to eat to fill their stomachs. So it's a wonderful cause. I can't thank Julie Montanaro enough. This is her baby, and we're proud to be a part of it. So PB&J, donate at your local school today.
Superintendent, what else are you doing tomorrow to help?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, board member Wood. So we are, second year in a row, going to be on with WFSU, trying to do a drive to support all the wonderful programs and partnerships we have with WFSU, and are very thankful for those opportunities. And so Ms. Wood and I will be on the air from yes to yes, 11 to 1, 11 to 1 tomorrow, raising money to support WFSU, and they do a lot for our public schools. They really do. They're very, very involved. I don't want to try to guess at a list. So this isn't just a plug for an outside agency that doesn't give back to us, because they certainly do. So please, if you're on the air tomorrow, donate to their annual sponsorship drive, and we'll see if we can meet our goal.
And I believe, was the peanut butter and jelly that's at WCTV, is this a Julie Montanaro? I saw them talking about it. I heard this was her. Was this her Envision a couple of years ago?
Yeah, last year,
awesome.
right. This is the second annual PB&J drive, and so we're excited. And then finally, last but certainly not least, just received notice that our board member, student board member, Ms. Richardson, has been received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy. And will be the class of 2022.
And she says that is where she wanted to go?
Wow.
That's right.
Karina, that's quite an honor. We are all very, very, very proud of you.
What do you want to do, Karina?
Yes.
Not exactly sure yet. I like chemistry, so maybe something in there. Public service is cool too. Keeping an open mind.
All right, good
The
way to
world is
go.
your oyster. Awesome. Big congratulations.
Good, STEM.
And oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
She's also a debutante this coming Saturday night. That's real big. And you can tell your mother there was no charge for the commercial.
We're so lucky to have you with us. Continuing concerns, 22.01. I won't spend much time because we've been here over 2 hours now. Lively financials. I know we've all been asking for this for quite a while, and it was finally gathered, and we got this yesterday at the agenda. But I think it sets a baseline for us that was the Shelley 16-17 school year. Yes. So now Shelley and Merrill did an unbelievable job. I know I think the first version was like 7 pages long, and we whittled down, and it just gave us some really, really good information. So like I said yesterday, I encourage you to read it. And this year when we get it, we'll be able to see growth, or we should be able to see which programs are growing, which ones are declining in enrollment, which ones are we putting more effort into, financially. So I look forward to a presentation from Shelley and other financial people to be determined after this year, so we can see kind of what's changed at Lively. And I think it's going to give us a lot of good. It's the data, Ms. Lewis Butler. It's a lot of good data,
right?
And we'll be able to decipher a lot from it.
And that's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. And then 2301 Women's History Month, Ms. Bowen, did you want to speak to that?
I do. And I just need to say, though, about the Lively financials, we are appreciative of that. Lively is so important to all of us, particularly those schools down the Thorpe Street corridor where Godby so nicely glovetails into the offerings there. So thank you, Shelley, for even starting that and now keeping this going. Thank you. I wanted to just make a couple of comments about March being Women's History Month. For obvious reasons, probably not too many individuals, but inherent in the name March as Women's History Month makes it important. So much so until, I believe it was in 1987 that Congress passed a public law to designate March as Women's History Month. Women have made many contributions to the family, to the state, to the nation, to the county. And on occasion, these contributions have been made very quietly and sometimes loud in the insistence of others that you really need to have a woman in there on that particular committee. And so we're thankful for those kinds of things. And it having been passed by Congress, it was an opportunity for us, the young at heart and the not so young at heart, and the ages in between, here again, to honor the role of women. So that's really what I wanted to say. And yes, I know I need to hurry up and say, because I see that you're smiling at me about this, that as we commemorate Women's History Month, we do not indicate the superiority of women over men, but rather to honor the role of women. So many times that goes unsaid, and so many times people will say, well, it's just a women's issue, so women ought to be the only one to talk about that. But I beg to differ, and if you checked out this historically, you would see that the data would show that what we do is so important to the societies that we live in, and is so important to the world in all of the different kinds of contributions that we make. And so my sisters on the board tonight, I salute you. And I could not go into calling names, because I would leave somebody out if I were to do that, and you probably would do the same thing. So I ask you for just a moment of personal privilege as I salute a woman who taught me my values and who taught me the difference between right and wrong, to be accountable, to be responsible, accessible, do what you say you're going to do, Joy, don't lie, hug, love your brothers and your sisters, get a good education, Joy. It may help you to move our family to another place. And so when I think about the women who are important in my life, this woman will never have her name in a history book. She's never going to have her name on any parchment. Nobody's probably going to ever talk about her but me. And the only place that probably her name will appear in the state of Florida is on the birth certificate of 5 children, of which I am the oldest. And her name is Lucy Neal Porter Moultrie. So tonight, I honor the woman who gave me birth and brought me into the world and helped me to be the woman that I am today. She has gone on to be with the Lord, but I stand here as part of her DNA tonight. And I suspect that you probably never give any thought about women in Women's History Month. You probably think about your mothers on Mother's Day. Well, that's coming up in May, but this is women's history. And so while you're looking at me strange, I want to ask you to do something for me. If you're bold enough, Colonel Joe has put his head down. He will be all right. Just in case in your life there is one woman that you feel has influenced you to be better, to be who you are, and that you know that you will never have done anything unless that woman and until you met her, I think you ought to call her name. So tonight I'm going to ask you, personal moment of privilege, on the count of 3. When I get to 3, I want you to call out the name of one woman that you know influenced your life and give it to the universe. If you're bold enough, if you're brave enough, if your values that you've had instilled in you caused you to be what it is and who you are today, 1, I want you to call her name. 2, I want you to call one name. And on 3, which is now 3, call that name.
Joan.
Maggie Moultrie.
Williamson.
Happy Women's History Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Bowen, right on.
And I didn't cry. I'm so happy.
Well, that was an awesome way to close tonight's meeting. Thank you, Ms. Bowen. Oh, wait, do we have more speakers? Oh, we're not finished.
Sorry.
Okay,
Wait, you ready?
sorry.
Sarah Toole, are you still here?
She's been waiting
Thank
the
you
whole meeting to say
Get
something.
4 minutes because you waited so long.
Give us your full name and address for the record, and the timer will start once you've done.
Sarah Toole, 42 Hudson Lane. My name is Sarah Toole, and I'm a freshman at Sale, which you were formerly the principal of. Thank you all for your tireless and continuous dedication to the students of Leon County. on behalf of all the students, we appreciate it. I stand in front of you as a concerned student activist. As a student, I worry about my own future and pray that no gun violence occurs in my own school. As an activist, I am angry. Since I started my freshman year, there have been a multitude of threats circulating around the school system of Leon County. And we almost went into lockdown at Sale about maybe a month and a half ago. And I mean, I was terrified, you know. I was thinking, which may be irrational thoughts at the time, but I was thinking, is this gonna be my last day on earth? Am I never gonna see my family again? I get that you guys are somewhat powerless in making laws and passing them, but you do play a large and integral part in our education and our activism within schools. I met you the other day at the march, and I appreciate you being out there. Your words actually really impacted me, almost brought me to tears. So April 20th is the 19th anniversary. This year is the 19th anniversary of Columbine. And it's also a day scheduled for walkouts, school walkouts around the country. This walkout would take place from 10 a.m. to 10:17 a.m. It was originally scheduled for 10 a.m. to 2:45 p.m., but that is a long time to sit out there. You know, I have 4 cases of water at home, but that doesn't even factor into all the other things that would possibly go wrong with being out there for, 5 hours? So 17 minutes would resemble the 17 people that we lost February 14th. 420 is obviously a day that's known for reckless and illegal behavior. And, you know, I read a few articles on news coverage of that day and the walkouts, and it said, we know what these kids are going to be doing. But my hope, and of course the people that know about it, their hope is that the kids will not do that. And I get that our education is important and we need to be in class, but 17 minutes could change the rest of our lives, and 17 minutes could play a part in keeping us alive. We're not protesting our education, we're protesting the inaction of our government and the lack of safety within our schools. Because personally, I feel like Sale isn't really a safe place. I feel that, and I know a lot of other students that I've spoken to feel that as well. You know, I have dreams. I want to go to the University of North Florida and major in political science, and then maybe go to a prestigious Ivy League school, and, you know, go to law school. So I don't want those ripped away from me, and I'm trying my best. I went to the February 21st rally. I went to the March 24th March for Our Lives event here in Tallahassee, and I've tried my best to be loud about this because it's something that needs to be talked about. And I feel like, you know, people aren't talking about, well, they're talking about it enough, but they're not talking about, you know, walking out enough and protesting the lack of safety within our schools.
We thank you so much for being here tonight. It takes a lot of bravery to get up and talk in front of people, and we thank you for your thoughts and for your voice, your whole generation. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Sarah, you said you're in ninth grade? Yes. Wow, that's amazing. You should be very proud of yourself. I know I think your family's here.
You have video.
Right, and you sat here 2.5 hours to get your 3 minutes. So thank you for
Thank you.
for the way you've dealt with this. Okay.
She came early, too.
The last speaker, Sandra Needhart. Forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly. Name and address for the record.
I'm Sandy Neidert at 2029 Chowkee Benini, and I am not here to talk about Title I, which will make several of you relieved, because I don't need to talk about it anymore. It's thankful for that. But I do have a proposal I'd like you to consider, and it's regarding the mentor program, and it comes from my experience as being a mentor. And I would like to propose, and I'm fully aware of the confidentiality, the federal laws, the FERPA, the state laws, your own disclosure of records laws here in Leon County schools, but I am also aware that if the parents sign a disclosure form, then information can be passed on. And I'm talking specifically about mentors. Mentors can mentor a student, as I did,
And then because of the transient nature of many of our students, they move to another school. No one can tell that mentor. I had no idea I would lose Kadeja and couldn't find her, and no one could tell me. Or she would move to Gadsden. I would follow her anywhere she went, and I did when I found her. But right now, there's no mechanism to allow a mentor to know anything. And if we want to have a coordinated approach to dealing with children in our schools, with trusting relationships formed over time, then we need to give the mentors, not all of them, not maybe the school, the FSU students who come in and out, but other community members who want to establish a real meaningful relationship with a student. We have to give them the tools to keep that relationship going. So this disclosure form would be presented to the parents and asking the parents, do you agree for just a few things? One, we will disclose the name of the new school that your child goes to should you move, not your address, your school. Two, would you be okay with the mentor having access to your IEP? So the mentor could also enhance and reinforce what's in the IEP, maybe even go to an IEP conference. The third thing would be that would authorize the mentor to have discipline records. And these they would check off what is okay with them and what is not. And that way, when a mentor goes in to mentor a mentee, they'll know the background. They'll know what to talk to the student about. We can be narrow-focused and read from a book and help a mentee read or do a math problem, but we all know that that's not the end to that relationship, or we don't want it to be just that. We want the whole child in a relationship where they can trust. I had mentored Kadeja since kindergarten, and she turned 18 a few months ago. Oh. She still invites me in her life. That's something, she's not doing great, maybe, and maybe there wasn't a whole lot that our relationship, changed in her life, but at least she knew she could count on me, and she still can count on me, and that's invaluable. So I just ask you to, I have a proposed form.
Okay.
Can I hand that out?
Sure, thank you.
I am not a lawyer. I work with lawyers, which make me even more difficult. But I thought
You have a lawyer.
Yeah. Thank you, great comments. You're speaking my lingo on mentoring, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, any other thoughts? All right, meeting adjourned.